I thought you were in a robe in a nice suite at some place, Mike.
Come on, man. You got to be realistic here.
How is Houston, or how was Houston?
It was Houston.
Yeah, the Final Four. It came down, like John said earlier. It kind of came out to be what we thought, but there's more to it. A lot more. I was reading your story today about the Hurleys, and man, they have been a part of college basketball, of our part, a part of our college basketball, at least mine, for a long time. I mean, I'm thinking it's and even further back than I know of, because, of course, my memory was started with Bobby Hurley and Duke. But I know that there was more to it, but we don't know that at the time. But learning that story later, it's always, I love seeing those families that are all do that. And Danny was probably the least, obviously the least known of the group, but yet he's standing pretty tall this morning.
Yeah, Bob Hurley Sr. is considered to be one of the greatest basketball coaches of all time. He won his games at the high school level. He was a phenomenal high school basketball coach. When you talk about the great high school basketball coaches, you talk about Morgan Wooten at DeMatha, and you talk about Bob Hurley at St. Anthony's in Jersey City, and you don't go much further than that. Those guys were titans. And Bob Hurley Sr. had two sons, Bobby, who became one of the greatest college basketball players in history and won 2 national championships, and Dan, who had to grow up kind of in the shadow of that. And that was a challenge for him. As I said in the article, he had a demanding coach for a father, and then demanding father for a coach. And it was hard on him. If he had Bobby's talent, it might have been different, but he was just a very good, he was an extraordinary high school player, but when he got to college and played at Seton Hall, he was not an extraordinary college player. And that was hard on him when you had a brother. And if there had been time maybe between Bobby and Dan, a space of 5 or 6 or 10 years, as there is in some families, it might have been a little bit less draining on Dan. But there wasn't. There were only a year or two. And so it was hard on him, and he had a rough time in a lot of ways at Seton Hall. And then he got started coaching, and he's had a very successful coaching career in a lot of ways. It is unconventional in some ways as well. He began as a Division I assistant, worked at Rutgers, did a nice job there, but the staff got let go. He went into prep school, high school coaching, whatever you want to call it, at St. Benedict's in New Jersey, coached a lot of elite players, and then went back into Division I coaching when he took over Wagner a little more than a decade ago, and went from Wagner, where he and his brother Bob did very well and got into the NCAA tournament, and then went from there to Rhode Island, and he got them to the tournament, ended Trae Young's college career in 2018, and then lost in the second round. I believe, if I remember correctly, it was to Villanova. And then when that year became the head coach at UConn, and has gradually built them back up to what they were back in the Jim Calhoun years and the apron years of the Jim Calhoun years. And I think that you looked at that team last night, and it was one, to me, it was one of the best teams built for March from the beginning. I had them in the championship game on my bracket. It's one of the few things that felt really good at the time that turned out to be true. I didn't have them winning. I had them losing to Alabama, but I thought that they would make it. And I thought that they played maybe even above what I thought they were capable of. And I'll be honest with you, I think they played over of what they thought they were capable of. I don't think they realized how good they could be if everything went right, and if they did everything right. But over the course of 6 games in the NCAA tournament, they did not have a single one that was not decided by double figures. And out of the, what are we up to now, 37 or so, 36, 37 expanded NCAA tournaments, they're one of only 4 teams to win every game by double digits, and to have they have the 4th largest average margin, victory margin in that stretch. So it says a lot about how consistently powerful they were in this tournament.
Yes, and I mentioned that earlier, in a tournament that was the craziest that we've ever seen. In all tournaments, virtually every team, well, minus the 4 that, or I don't know if it's a 4 or 6, whatever, but minus those teams, every team I've ever seen in every year has to have a little luck, has a close game. Things just have to go their way. It just always is that way. It's just, that's how the tournament is.
Right.
Not with this UConn team, man. They were just solid all the way through. I was fortunate to see them play in New York, and they were together. They have been together as a team, and you can tell they play together. They just don't make a lot of mistakes.
And they use what their assets are. They don't lose track of what makes them exceptional. They run plays to get Jordan Hawkins shots, and they run them. They don't abandon them at the first sign of a challenge. They get the ball inside to Adama Sanogo. They fed the post. They allowed Sanogo to work the offensive boards.
He's a beast, by the way.
He is really powerful. Absolutely.
Oh, man.
He was terrific again last night and was named most outstanding player. It's one the sports writers got one right there. We were happy to see that. That worked out the way it did after David McCormick kind of got a rough deal a year earlier for Kansas, when he should have been most outstanding player at the Final Four. Or like when Caitlin Clark scored 70 points in 2 games and somehow didn't win most outstanding player. I mean, you'd like her to have won in order to give her the trophy, but my goodness, she scored 70 points. Come on, people. What are we doing here? She was clearly the most outstanding player. Sometimes I don't know what's happening. I can't
remember. I was just say, I can't remember the girl's name from LSU, but she was giving her answer to that by doing this when on the floor. That was meant for Caitlin Clark and Caitlin's, because they talked a lot about what they called her disrespect of other players, her disrespect of the team they saw before, and how her antics were. And she's an unbelievable player. She kind of reminds me of Larry Bird a little bit. And Larry Bird was the greatest trash talker in the history of the world. I didn't know that, but that's the difference.
Yeah,
but that's the difference. We didn't know that.
Yes,
he did it, and those guys do it without the rest of the world knowing it. She seems to make sure she does it to where everybody sees it, and that is what I think is the difference between the two. Other than that, she can pack up. If she would just do it quietly and say, "I'm going to put this 3 in your face," she would probably do it. So that's the only difference.
Yeah, I didn't understand why everybody made such a big deal about the fact that she made that gesture to the player from South Carolina that they weren't guarding, that they were leaving open. I guess it was like a gesture like that, something like that, a dismissive gesture.
Yes.
Yeah, and okay. So then the young woman from South Carolina then made three second half 3-pointers that nearly won the game for. So why are we? It's as if that was a great thing that she did by dismissing her, but then the young woman from South Carolina came back and stuck 3 threes. Why didn't anybody talk about that? One of the things that it struck me after the way this went in the women's tournament was that they were treated in the same way that the men are treated every year. So maybe this is a great moment for women's basketball in a perverse way. And what I mean by that is that what you have is all these people who never watched the sport until March come in and tell those people who watch the sport every day from November to April how everything's, how everything should run, how everything is, who's really great, what really matters, all that stuff that happens to men's basketball every March by people who don't follow the sport happen to the women. So now they've gotten their taste of that. And I guess that's a good thing because 10 million people did watch and you want them to be. But it would be nice if those people would maybe wait until they gain some expertise on the subject at hand before they decide to tell everybody how they should run it.
I wonder if the Iowa-South Carolina ratings will outshine either of the men's games.
I don't think so.
Just because of the sheer numbers of the men's audience.
They got nearly 10 million for the Iowa LSU game on Sunday afternoon for the championship game. They got the audience came out yesterday. It was nearly 10. And that's, you can find it. I think there's a tweet, I think from Awful Announcing you can find it that that was more than a lot of NBA finals games and a lot of other events, obviously not more than most NFL big games, but bigger than a lot of stuff. That was a breakthrough audience for women's basketball. Now, can they hold them? I hope they can. But it was a big moment.
Yeah, the whole Final Four. I mean, Iowa and South Carolina, that was a gigantic game. I mean, that was can't miss television. I was definitely, I'm like, I'm not missing that game. Are you kidding me? That's going to be a great game. And I did.
I had a dinner thing Friday night, and we finished up in time for me to watch most of the game. I don't think I saw the beginning. I probably saw the last three quarters, and it was a special event. It was really terrific. And the final was not as good because LSU was just so great, just making plays that they're certainly capable of. They were a great team, but also they played beyond even their standard. One of those nights where everything they shot went in. And I mean, their standard is not that. I mean, it was very, like I said, they were a great team, but they don't shoot the numbers that they shot that night. They were unbelievable.
Didn't they have a player off the bench or someone that scored 21 points in the first half that is not normally one of their big time scorers? She sank a bunch of threes and she sank that three at the buzzer that banked in. For the half. So there's that. Bob Knight was released from the hospital. Saw that. So great news there. Coach Knight going home. I know a lot of people were worried. They sent that message out to the players that he went in and to pray for his safe return to home. Man, he has done that. But I know you've been away and all that wrapped up. Did you get a chance to talk to Dusty May much?
I did not, actually. I did not get a chance to spend a lot of time around him. Some of the things I was working on diverged from his participation. Obviously, if they had made it to last night and they came very close, I would have gotten a chance to see him on Sunday and Monday. But I obviously was extremely impressed by how they played, by the togetherness they showed, by the inspiration, the vision, and the confidence they played with. Not many teams were able to do to that San Diego State defense what they were able to do on Saturday. Just one more basket for the Aztecs than for the Owls, but the Florida Atlantic certainly played beautiful basketball.
What I was more impressed with was Dusty's coaching style. He does not overcoach. He stands there on the sideline. He is as calm as can be. He's watching what's going on. He just makes the right moves, doesn't get excited, which that will carry over to your team and allow you to make better decisions in crunch time. I was just amazed on how comfortable. He's never been to the Final Four. It looked like it was his 10th trip.
Yeah, I think that's there are different ways to do it. But I always think I always admire the coaches the most who can focus on their team more so than extraneous elements, including officiating. I think there are times when a coach feels compelled to fight for his team or fight for her team, depending on men's or women's. But I do think that sometimes coaches get distracted from that, and I don't think you'll ever see that from Dusty. I think that he's so composed, so together. It was really an impressive run for the Owls. Interestingly, a lot of people talked about, okay, well, he just won a national championship. Where is he going to be this year? Where's he going to be next year? What job is he going to take? And I think what they missed in all of that was if you get that check, you can cash it anytime you want. You earn that check, you can cash it at any point. Shaka Smart stayed at VCU for, I think, another 4 or 5 years before he left for Texas.
For a job that didn't work out, and now he's killing it at Marquette, because I just saw that one publication has him as a too early number 1 next year.
Yes, I believe that's Jeff Goodman. I don't know if he published it on Field of 68 or Stadium, or both. But that's his number 1 preseason team. Not sure that I'm there with that.
Actually, it might be in the Athletic too. Is there someone that had one in the Athletic?
They may have agreed with Jeff. I saw Jeff's tweet because someone was chastising Jeff. One of my friends from Lexington, Alan Cutler, was chastising Jeff for doing that and basically saying Mike DeCourcy wouldn't do that. And I'm like, yeah, I did it last week. I'm already in the books. We had
your buddy Seth Davis.
Maybe Seth did too.
Seth has Marquette number 1, Purdue number 2. But